All right, man, peace. So, brothers, this video right here will probably be the first entry into a series that I'm going to call Relationship Issues with Liberal Women. And this is something that we have to seriously scrutinize because, once again, the so-called black man is not raised to understand what he should expect and what he should tolerate, not only from others, but from himself first, because based off of what you tolerate for yourself and what your own standards are for yourself, that's going to have a trickle-down effect in regards to what you tolerate from others, what your standards are going to be for others. And one of the main problems that so many brothers have, especially younger brothers, they just put up with any old thing, man. So-called black man is made to believe that any female that offers herself to him, he should accept, he should take on, and within 4 or 5 months, he should be living with her, trying to impregnate her, or considering marrying her, things of that nature. And this court case here is going to illustrate many of the problems, the mental issues that the liberal black female has. Now, are all females liberal? Are all black females liberal? No. But the vast majority of them are. Why is that? Because that's a culture. If you plant 100 seeds into the same field, you're going to have 100 plants that are all going to pretty much grow the same way. Now, you might have 5 out of those 100 plants that grow in a more upstanding way than the other 95. For whatever reason, whether it be divine providence or what have you. But in general, when you plant the same seed into the same type of soil, you're going to get the same type of plant. So the issue right now is not really the liberal black woman so much as what the so-called black man tolerates, what he accepts, because whatever you accept is going to trickle down to the woman, man. All right. That's why I state my channel is geared towards the so-called black man, because you have to be the one to make the changes, not them. They're not going to make the changes, because they've put the woman above you in this society. So why should she change? How she's conducting herself is not being reprimanded. It's not being chastised. She's not being corrected. That's why she feels like she should never be held accountable for her actions. So it's up to you to have a higher level of understanding and utilize much more scrutiny than many brothers utilize, man. It's very important. So now we're going to watch this case here. This liberal black female here. She's actually in a relationship with, or was in a relationship with, a quote-unquote wigger white boy. And that's a phenomenon that you'll see very often. It's been going on in the so-called black community now for like the past 25 years. They started to promote it about 25 years ago. I already did a couple of videos on one of the more prominent wigger white boys from that era by the name of Michael Rappaport. He did a very seminal interracial dating film called Zebrahead that came out back in the early 90s to help promote that wigger white boy with the black woman paradigm. And that still goes on a lot today. It just does not get advertised as much because overall they want to promote the black man runs after these women of the other races, and the black man, when he gets rich or when he gains any type of affluence, he gets a woman of another race, when actually it's the opposite. It's actually the black woman who pretty much to a 95th percentile dates outside of her race, quote unquote dates outside of her race, and marries outside of her race when she becomes famous. And all you have to do is look at all the famous black women going all the way back to the 1920s and 30s, Josephine Baker and people like that. And you'll see that the so-called black woman, whenever she's gotten any type of fame, has always went lesbian and or interracial. Bottom line. I mean, the list it goes on and on, ad infinitum. Now, of course, there are not as many famous black women as there are black men, because there are just many more fields for the so-called black man to become famous in. But still, even in the sports world, I would guess that probably anywhere from 75 to 80% of so-called black men are with black women. Now, when you look at the so-called black woman, when they become famous or gain any type of affluence, even in the sports world, when you look at a Serena Williams or you go to the WNBA, the vast majority of those females are lesbians or they date interracially. And this is why I tell you, brothers, I don't get into the circular gender war, because all the liberal black women is going to say, what about you niggas? What about? I don't have time for that nonsense. If you're not a woman in my family, or the woman I'm getting asked from, or the women I'm getting asked from, I'm not concerned with your views. I'm just not. And I'm sure people are going to get offended by that. It's okay. I'm not trying to be dismissive. I have love for the black woman, but right now, many of them are mentally ill, spiritually ill. And it's up to you, brothers, to help them. It's up to you to help them, starting with your woman. Once again, that's why this channel is geared towards the so-called black man. And I simply don't have the patience to get into a back and forth with a random broad over the internet. I'm sorry. But men are not supposed to be going back and forth with women. But anyway, let's see what they have to say here in this case.
Defendant Josh Reisner says he broke up with Jennifer after she kicked him out of their home.
Now look at this goofy looking dude, man. He like one of those guys, like I said about Michael Rappaport. He'll try to get into a battle with you to see who knows more Wu-Tang lyrics or more Nas lyrics. He's one of those guys.
So he started dating another woman and got her pregnant.
Now look at that. Oftentimes the liberal black female will think that it's going to be sunnier on the other side. She'll say, I'm going to go be with a man who's a Caucasian or a man who's Asian or this or that. And they'll end up experiencing the same issues. But once again, I don't blame them, because in general, the vast majority of females are two-dimensional thinkers. It's up to the so-called black man to restore order. It's up to us to restore order. It's not up to the woman. It's not the woman's nature to like order. Remember, she's an agent of chaos by nature.
Josh claims once Jennifer found out, she started stalking his pregnant girlfriend. And he insists they did not have sex last week.
All rise. This court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Greg Mathis presiding. You may now be seated.
Start with you.
Me and Josh started dating in 2013. It was basically an on and off relationship.
Hey, brothers. Now, I have a series on quote-unquote on and off relationships. That is the new relationship paradigm for the liberal woman of all races, not just the so-called black woman. The new relationship paradigm is the on-off relationship paradigm or dynamic, where basically they meet a guy, they'll quote-unquote date, meaning spend his money and fuck him for about 2 months, get bored, break up with him for about a month, see if they can find anything better, get back with him for about 3-4 months, break up again, get back with him. Brothers, do not allow yourselves to fall down that rabbit hole. It's nonsense. All you're doing is wasting your time and wasting your money. Now, if she's a concubine and you have enough understanding to know that you're not supposed to be spending money on a concubine, then that's a whole other issue. But do not allow yourself to fall down that rabbit hole of on-off relationships. It's nonsense.
He's a Gemini, so basically multiple personalities. 1 minute he loves me, the next minute he doesn't love me. So basically it's just been on and off with him. We never officially broke up.
Now listen to what this female just stated. She basically made a personality evaluation of him based off of his quote-unquote astrological sign. She said he's a Gemini. So that means one day he loves me, the other day he doesn't. I stated this in a video a while ago. It was another Judge Mathis video. One of the religions of the liberal female, especially the liberal black female, is astrology or horoscopes. They believe that this gives them a leg up in regards to being able to deduce what their so-called significant other is going to do, how compatible they're going to be. Pretty much all liberal women in general, they love astrological horoscopic readings. They think that it gives them some type of advantage. Oh, I know that we're going to be good together because you're a fire sign and I'm a water sign, or you're an air sign, or all this little silly shit. Instead of them just understanding that maybe it's not working because I have to work on myself. I've said this before. And you see a growing number of liberal black females on the internet making these videos about how they can't get a man because they're dark skinned. There's nobody who can't get a significant other because of their skin color. I don't care who you are. Whether you're a dark-skinned black man, dark-skinned black female, if you cannot get a significant other, it's a you problem. You have a personality issue. And if you're a liberal black woman, you most likely have a series of entitlement and accountability issues where you think everything is supposed to go your way. And if you're a liberal black man, you probably act like a bitch. That's probably why you can't keep a significant other, because if you're a liberal black man, you're probably a simp and you can't act like a bitch, or you're a simp and you just want to be a perpetual side dude, which is how liberal black men are. They act like they mothers.
So,
Wait, see, Gemini, all Geminis aren't like that with their mate. I know a lot of Geminis, they stay with their mate all the time.
Now, did you hear what Judge Mathis stated? He said, why'd you say Geminis? I know a lot of Geminis that stay with their mate. In other words, he's letting her know maybe it's a you problem. Maybe it's not based on their astrological sign. Maybe it's a you issue. Let me also say this, brothers. When you come across these liberal black females that love talking about astrology all the time, they most likely also have leanings towards Wicca. Okay? A lot of these chicks are heavily into witchcraft right now. And when you hear them always trying to talk about astrology or horoscopes, it may be also because they have a heavy leaning towards Wicca. But when you do research on the horoscopic signs or the astrological signs, it's really all meant to be in commemoration of Cush, Nimrod, and Semiramis. When you go down each sign, I'll probably do a video on that soon enough. But for example, Sagittarius, the half man, half horse, also known as the centaur. All that was meant to denote was that he was a priest of Asar, or a priest of Baal. All right? Kahantor, a priest of the bull. That's where you get the term centaur from, or kentor from. All right? Kahan, meaning a priest. Tor or Taurus bull, a priest of the bull, or a priest of the sun god. That's all that meant. Capricorn, the goat-headed fish god. That was meant to be an allusion to Cush. Remember, the goat-headed god is known as Khnum or Benebdejet, commonly known today as the Baphomet. And then the fish portion meant to be an allusion to Nimrod as Dagon. Remember, as Asar, he was thrown into the waters and he was brought back out, half man, half fish. And Capricornus is always associated with what? The planet Saturn. Saturn is the main celestial body that they worship, as well as the sun. So each astrological sign is associated with a celestial body. Taurus, of course, meaning the bull god, Baal. So on and so forth. Aries is Khnum, the ram-headed god. Libra is Mahat, the divine so-called goddess, Semiramis, the goddess of the balancing of scales, of quote-unquote divine justice. All right? So that's pretty much all is. Leo, the lion, which is associated with the sun. That is Heru, right? The return of the king. That's where you get the film The Lion King from. When you watch that movie, The Lion King, the sun is always used as a major motif in that film. It's also associated with the Heliacal Rising, July 20th, which has a major significance in world affairs. But like I said, I'll probably do a video on the astrological signs. Please keep in mind the term horoscope means watch by time, or horo, or the hour, time. It comes from the word Heru, the name for the son of Asar, right? Scope means to watch. Astrology means word from the stars.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So anyway, so it was on and off with Josh, and basically it was just like he just kept lying on Facebook, saying that he hasn't dealt with me in over 2 years. But I have text messages as well that we still have been communicating. Him telling me.
All right. So when the last time you all dated?
We I saw him last Thursday. We had sex.
Okay. So you were still dealing with. So did you all know you?
The reason why she saw him last Thursday and they had sex, even though he's with somebody new, is because what? She's just a concubine. And I try to explain this to many of you brothers. Some of you guys who go into that over-righteous realm and think that every female can become a wife. Oftentimes, when you see these guys on the internet and they talk about how, no, you can only have one woman, you know what that is? Because most of those guys were raised by a woman. And they were raised to venerate the feminine principle. And there's nothing wrong with having just one woman. I have to say this every time. Because a lot of times you have a lot of two-dimensional thinkers out there who don't comprehend the nuance aspect of what people say. But if you're a grown man and you utilize discretion and you have standards, you know that there are very few upstanding females in this society. Very few. The vast majority of them are liberal. So if you happen to find a female that is wife material and you just want to deal with her because you don't want to bring any confusion into your life, then that's what you do. If you don't come across any upstanding females and you're just dealing with concubines, you have to remember to utilize great discretion. Because the concubine, oftentimes, her agent of chaos DNA is ratcheted all the way up to 10, man. She likes to bring chaos into her own life and into yours if you allow it. So, proceed with caution.
Did he know you were suing him last Thursday?
No, he didn't know that time. I was doing it.
And you weren't too upset with him, either.
I was upset. I've been asking him for the money for months and months.
The money or the money shot?
But he hasn't.
So he's that good that
I wouldn't say that.
a man owes you money, you're suing him in court, but you just got to get you a little, you just have to have sex with him.
That's so Gemini.
Well, you also have to remember that he represents the paragon of what the liberal black female actually wants, which is a Caucasian man. I tell you brothers this all the time. Liberalism in the so-called black community is like a tree. I mean, liberalism in general is like a tree. And you have different branches on that tree. The homosexual movement, interracial relationships, globalism, pansexuality, transgender. Those are all branches on the liberalism tree. And the Caucasian male has been set up as a paragon for the liberal black female to be infatuated with and to want to maintain a relationship with. Brothers, let me say this. A lot of these females out here, so-called black females, especially if they're very attractive physically, they've been with Caucasian men. But they won't tell you that. Why is that? Because the relationship with the Caucasian man didn't work out. And they don't want people to know that they've had the same problems in their relationship attempts with Caucasian men as they've had with so-called black men. Because they know they can go public and denigrate and demonize the so-called black man, but they can't do that to the Caucasian man, because then if you're demonizing all races of men, you're the only variable that hasn't changed. You're the only constant. So obviously the issue is you. That's why they won't tell you about a lot of these relationships with men of the other races that they've had, because they want to make it look like they've just been the recipient of such bad luck in quote unquote dating with black men. So when you start to initiate these interactions with the liberal black woman, if you choose to be associated with one of them, if you want to inquire about the other races of men they've dealt with, you can do so. But please keep in mind that 99 times out of 100, they're not going to be forthright. They're not going to be honest. And if that's just a concubine, I mean, does it really matter what she's done? I mean, it really doesn't matter at the end of the day anyway. I mean, shit's going to be what it's going to be.
Gemini.
It sounds like she's the Gemini, doesn't it? Yeah, you're the Gemini.
She may not be a Gemini. She's just a modern liberal female. She feels up one day, down the next, east the next day, west the day after that. They don't really know what they want to do, where they want to go, who they want to do it with. That's why, once again, it's up to the so-called black man to bring stability, first to himself, and then to the minds and the hearts of these women, because they're all over the fucking place. Bottom line. And if you leave the so-called black community in control of the so-called black woman, as many of you brothers have done, have allowed, as we have done and allowed, it's only going to lead to further degradation, because the woman cannot lead. They cannot lead. They can only act as proxies. Who are they acting as proxies for? The liberal Caucasian. That's it. That's why you'll see that overwhelmingly the liberal black woman will regurgitate many of the ideologies of the liberal Caucasian. And notice, the bailiff stated that the plaintiff is exhibiting many traits of a Gemini. The overall aspect of the Gemini is twinning. That's what the term Gemini means. It means twins. So that's why you'll see oftentimes in pagan mythology, you'll have two brothers, one good, one evil. Or sometimes you'll have a brother and a sister, like Apollo and Artemis. That's where you get the characters of Luke Skywalker and Leia Skywalker from. They're supposed to play off of one another. Or in Marvel, or really in Norse mythology, you have Thor and Loki.
All right, this is last Thursday.
Yes.
Are you ever going to be with him again?
No, I'm not.
Why?
Because he lies too much back and forth.
So you didn't know that before last Thursday when you gave him some ass?
Basically telling me that was the best thing that happened to him in text messages. But it's just like the action on Facebook, you're showing me that something different, that I was the worst thing for you. But at the same time, you still communicate with me.
How did last Thursday
Because you're a concubine. He likes your vagina. That's about it.
occur? He called you, you called him?
Wednesday, he texted me saying, hi, how are you? Just checking up on you. And then we started talking. I was just like, in text saying, I'm like, oh, so I'm glad that you're happy now. And he's like, well, I'm not really happy. And then saying that I was basically happier with.
But you knew you all were going to break up?
We didn't really break up.